Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ben Moskalensky, and welcome to the Ben Moskalensky Show, where we cover a variety of kids' issues, be it those meant for specifically kids or those that can branch out into teenagers and even possibly adults, but they still need to root back to primarily kids. Our first topic today will be another one of my books. That would be my most recently published book, The Hawker's Memoirs, The Ghost of Nothing. You can go find it on Amazon right now. $3.99, so it's very nice. It's a nice 280-page book, so I try not to make this one as massive as my prior books. And for part of this section, I'm going to go on a bit of a tirade upon how certain Amazon features work, although on the whole, I think Amazon is an absolutely fantastic site. It is definitely not perfect, but then again, what is? Now, before I go into anything, I'd like to say, first of all, this is a mistake I made in my last show when I was talking about Journal of the Survivor. Two very important words that I forgot to say that pretty much almost ruined the entire section. Spoiler alert. This will be filled with spoilers to the point where if you are not planning on buying the book, then that's really the only way you can listen to this. That, or if you've already read the book. And of course, you can find little bits and pieces of it and lore bits, furthering news, and so on my Hawker's Memoirs collection on Google+, also titled The Hawker's Memoirs, The Ghost of Nothing. But where if you want to buy the actual finished version of the book, no missing parts, not really as many mistakes, very few actually compared to that of the first draft version published online, you go to Amazon.com, search the Hawker's Memoirs. It has my name on the title, on the bottom. Very nice cover, if I do say so myself. There's a link to it in the description of this YouTube video, or if you're watching it, or if you're listening to this on SoundCloud, it's in the description on SoundCloud. And before I talk about Hawker's Memoirs more in general and get into a similar thing that we did with Journal of the Survivor, we're taking your calls right now. 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Now let's continue. The Hawker's Memoirs was my fourth book and my first good fantasy book. It takes place, it starts in the year 1694, finishes in the year 1695. It is a first-person perspective from the viewpoint of Nicholas Rome, an aristocratic but deadly Frenchman who works with two partners, a French woman and a Japanese man, or samurai, I guess you could say. And as they go on various black ops for their people. And this is kind of like, it's sort of, you see many shows with modern day stuff about black ops and, you know, people working for governments and stuff. But this is the late 17th century version of that. It is, I would like to label this historical fiction. I did a lot of research for this book, but it still has dragons and all that sort of stuff. And it's not like Nicholas Rome was a real person. And if he was, I did not base the character off of this. All of the main characters, besides the kings and people like that, who I did do all the research on, such as William Johnston, Nicholas Rome, Florence Lane, Ming Lee, Andrevis Trait, all these different people. These are all workings of my imagination, which I have put into style. One thing that I did not do with Hawker's Memoirs that I did do with Hero of the First Islands is a crossover thing with Journal of the Survivor. I didn't feel like it would be right. Maybe one day, but it might seem more right to people, but the amount of the lesser amounts of contraction contrasting would be not ideal. It's kind of hard to word, but I don't think I could fit that into a book like I did with Hero of the First Islands. It would be more like a fan fiction or a short story. I just didn't feel like a crossover between those two would be good, but maybe I'll change my mind later. Maybe I'll do some sort of grand crossover thing in the future. It all depends. It all depends. Right now, I'm just focusing on finishing up Hero of the First Island so I can move on to Journal of the Survivor 2 and marketing Hawker's Memoirs. Now, in Hawker's Memoirs, there are two main storylines currently, and this will evolve. There are other like mini storylines that will branch out as the series moves on, but I kind of based it off of what was going on in France at the time. In 1695 France, which was the majority of the book, or in for 1695 France, there were two main opposing countries. Number one, well, I mean, like because of war. Number one was Britain, due to King William's War, or the 9 Years' War, which was a fight for the territories and colonies here in America, where basically King Louis XIV, the King of France at the time, wanted to take over some of the lands over here from the British. And obviously, due to the Revolutionary War, I believe the outcome of that battle is fairly obvious, or that war is fairly obvious. And the second primary enemy of France at the time was the Ottoman Empire. And I would not say Prussia, because the only time in that time era that France and Prussia were in the same general war was when they were working together against the Ottoman Empire. Because the Ottoman Empire, led at the time by Sultan Ahmed II, who was a psychopath, wanted to, well, okay, I'm not sure if he's a psychopath, but a warmonger pretty much, who wanted to take over Europe. He was working his armies to try and take over Europe. It was actually primarily the forces of Russia that stopped them. Or at least that's how it's televised in the book. And I'm actually thinking about having a history segment with no fiction. So a lot of the book has to do with primarily British and Ottoman related stuff. But I do get more creative than just that. Even though like I would consider the main villain of the book to be William Johnston, which is pretty much Nicholas Rome's counterpart. Nicholas Rome works for the French. William Johnston works for the British. Although I have like a direct counterpart for Nicholas Rome, an arch nemesis, if you will, I still view that other characters as very important. As an example, Andrebas Trait is a Prussian freelancer, a Prussian, not Russian. That's the equivalent of German at the time. A freelance killer, pretty much, and a large portion of the time he often is against Nicholas Rome, even though unlike the feuds between William Johnston and Nicholas Rome, it's not personal. So I might be doing some. It'll be a bit more. Their relationship will be a bit more tri-dimensional rather than the relationship between Nicholas Rome, Florence Lane, who is his partner, and against William Johnston, and of course their partners. Another very important thing was the relationship between the two primary Asian countries at the time, being China and Japan. China favoring Britain more, Japan favoring France more, which is henceforth why, even though they didn't go full scale, at least not at the time, since there were no really like big wars, since Japan was pretty closed off at the time, other than a couple of exceptions, like Hiroshima. And people are asking, not many, but some people are asking why I decided to name Hiroshima. His first name is Hiro, his last name is Shima. Well, if you look at my other two main characters, being Nicholas Rome and Florence Lane, I'm just talking about like the protagonists, if you will. If you look at them, Nicholas Rome. Rome is a city, and Florence is a city. His partner, her name's Florence Lane. Florence is a city, and I wanted to get more Asian country involvement, not for any political agenda or anything, but just because I thought it would purely be interesting to look into more depth, because I pretty much explored like the British, Prussian, Holy Roman Empire. I was exploring all those things, and Russian as well. I was exploring all those things a good amount, and Ottoman Empire, maybe some of that, but I mean, they weren't exactly friends at the time. I wanted to go deeper, but I didn't want to pick something like Africa or our area, like North and South America, because those places weren't very developed at the time. It's not like now where pretty much every continent in the world has all kinds of interesting people. The two really only interesting continents to write about, in my view, for a book like Hawker's Memoirs would be Europe and Asia. So that's why I wanted to get the involvement of the Japanese and Chinese, and of course it's very interesting doing research into the Qing dynasty and the Edo period. So I'm kind of balancing. I'm trying to balance this book, because although I do love my antagonists, I don't like to focus primarily on those two main feuds. And that's like, I made this mistake for a while in Journal of the Survivor, where I became so in love with Oliver Crone that I kind of forgot about everything else, and Oliver Crone started getting stale for a while. And that's not a mistake I want to make with any of my other series. And trust me, I was able to rectify the situation, and in Journal of the Survivor 2, you're going to see how I did it. But that's why I like to get the involvement. Like right now, at the end of Hawker's Memoirs, again, spoiler alert, they're in prison and they're trying to break out, and they're involved with like this Ottoman captain who's going to become a relevant person later, and this Spanish painter. And this Spanish painter is one messed up guy. If anyone watching this is a reader of my Hero of the First Islands collection, which will become a book in probably like a week or two, probably like 2 weeks or so, and it'll probably be published on Amazon as well. To those of you who read that, and it's a much lighter style of book. Hawker's Memoirs is the pure polar and opposite of that. It is just completely, it's super dark. It almost has a kind of hollow feeling if you read it. Some people would get a hollow feeling. That was kind of the point. I didn't want to make it hollow to the point where it's like depressing, but it's supposed to feel, it's not supposed to feel gratifying. You read Journal of the Survivor, some parts of it are gratifying. You read Hero of the First Islands, it's very gratifying. It creates that satisfaction. Hawker's Memoirs is supposed to feel pale. Not pale, but dark. Like the ending of a sad movie, which is a very different kind of satisfaction. The ending to Hawker's Memoirs is very satisfying, but not in a good way, in both books. And it's going to be a duology, which I believe will be my 9th book. That'll be my first option for my 9th book, since I'm going to start formatting my books a bit differently, starting with 9th book. Anyways, to those of you who would like to call in and keep talking about me, talk with me regarding Hawker's Memoirs, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Now continuing with Hawker's Memoirs. And once again, if you would like to read this book, it is on Amazon, only $3.99. You can get it immediately since it's a digital book. No extra shipping, nothing. It's $3.99 flat number. And it's yours forever. You can lend it. It's really cool what you can do with stuff. And there are other things too. Really cool little perks if you go to, but only if you can go to the link in the description below and look up the Hawker's Memoirs. And now for the final statements. So overall, if you're thinking about buying Hawker's Memoirs, I didn't want to go into the series that much because there isn't a lot to cover with Hawker's Memoirs, because there's a lot of stuff that I want to reveal in the second book, at least to an extent. There's some things about Nicholas Rome that I just want to be a mystery forever. That should just go totally, completely, never fully answered, in my view at least, because I can't, for some extent, because I can't think of something satisfying enough, since I've built up the expectations so astronomically high throughout the book that might be a disappointing ending, kind of like the whole Five Nights at Freddy's thing with Scott Cawthon. Or in other cases, I just don't want people to know. So I don't want to do that much answering, but if you're looking for a book that is very atypical of most books that people are publishing now, and not even books, this applies to entertainment in general, where there's always going to be a nice, happy ending. If you're looking for something more unique, something more realistic, but also not as realistic, like more realistic in the sense of an ending, like not always what life is good, but not as realistic in the sense of like it's not just completely depressing. It's still has dragons and cool characters and everything like that. I'd highly recommend checking out Hawker's Memoirs. And maybe if you're taking late 17th century Ottoman history, maybe I can help you get at least a B minus, hopefully. Anyways, 45 minutes to the hour, we will now be transitioning into our second section, which is going to be about news and politics, more specifically CNN. I'm going to be covering some recent videos that have come out and the 3 people who quit or were fired from CNN after these tapes were released, and talk about what this means for the mainstream media in general, what this means for CNN. I'm going to get a bit philosophical into this one. Now, for those of you who don't know, there's been a theory, a very popular theory, and one I personally believe in, that CNN is fake news. And this has been spread out to almost every, if not every, major media at this point. But the thing is, sometimes people don't overreact to it. CNN was not one of those people. I believe, I'm not sure about this, but I believe it was Van Jones who said this, who said that calling CNN or calling trustworthy news fake news is the equivalent of calling a black person a derogatory term. That is not at all the same thing. Some people are just completely overreacting. A derogatory term is a horrible thing. It's a derogatory term. That's why it's what it is. Calling something fake news is just saying, I think your news is biased, either at worst biased, at best biased, at worst internally flawed, internally and externally extremely flawed. Those are 2 astronomically different levels of insult. Astronomically. I mean, the closest equivalent I can think of is someone going on a 5-paragraph tirade on what a horrible person you are, which would be just horrible, like this horrible thing, like all these low blows and everything. And then someone saying, like telling CNN, you're stupid, and CNN equating it to that 5-paragraph horrible insult. That's the closest equivalent I can think of at this moment. But anyways, back to the tapes. But to those of you who would like to pitch into this conversation before I go more in depth, the number is 719-284-5873 with the pin 2477. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873, pin 24777. You can call in and you will be reminded. I'm actually telling this to someone right now. You will be reminded that you are live on the air. So, if you'd like to participate, please call that number. And I would love to have your call so we can keep talking. Anyways, right now, we're going to get into the tapes. So, a couple days ago, or about a week ago, there were some tapes released. This one gentleman or woman went around some sort of CNN headquarters or different places where they found different CNN, like different levels of authority in CNN, like low-level and high-level people in CNN. They started interviewing them, and I believe Van Jones was one of them. I know I'm kind of targeting him a lot, but just giving him using him as an example. They started interviewing all these different people in CNN about the Trump-Russia conspiracy. And the overall census that different people said, and some of this stuff I'm saying that like this is the equivalent, and some of this I'm paraphrasing. It's BS, in much less child-friendly terms. It's a witch hunt. It's empty. And this was taken in private, that was released publicly. You could say, well, that could be their personal opinion, which isn't much of a defense, but let's just attack that point anyway. It could be their personal opinion, but there's fact to back it up, even though there isn't. But even live on the air, I forget who did this. I thought it was actually MSNBC, and props to MSNBC for this. They called Hillary Clinton a conspiracy theorist, and it's true. There has been no evidence. The Democrats have been digging into this for months now. Where's the evidence? They keep talking about evidence, evidence, evidence. Where's the evidence? I don't see the evidence. There are some suspicious things, but there is no hard evidence. I don't even think there's light evidence. There's maybe, okay, you want to say something like, well, Donald Trump's tweet at the Morning Joe was vulgar and sexist. I don't think it's sexist, but it definitely was vulgar and unnecessary, very unpresidential-like. But that doesn't make him or the Russians guilty of hacking into the U.S. elections. But I could be wrong. I'd love to hear your opinion. So make sure to call in the show, 719-284-5873, with the PIN 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873, with the PIN 24777. And returning to the show. And in my view, a lot of mainstream media these days, and I actually talked about this on a podcast I used to have, which you can go check out on my collection on Google Plus, is that nowadays media is inherently biased. Be it New York Times, CNN, Wall Street Journal, MSNBC, CNBC, or no, actually they're not that bad. PBS, that's a good example. These people are inherently biased, and there's really no other way to put it. I mean, you look up any article from the New York Times. I'm actually going to go test this right now. I'm going to look up right now, New York Times, Donald Trump, and I'll bet you anything, none of these will be respectful. People can't be respectful to the other opinion anymore. And it's one thing when it's online with some stupid, whatever, 8-year-old who disagrees with your opinion because their grandma disagrees with my opinion. This is the New York Times. This is an unbelievably respected, by some people, media outlet. And looks like we have a caller. Hello, caller. You are on the Ben Moskalensky show. Right now you're live on the air. What's your name?
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
All your quality is great. Welcome to the show. Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here.
What's your name?
Allie.
Allie, great to have you on the show. Anyways, right now I'm talking about CNN and news in general. Have you heard about the tapes that have recently been released where a bunch of CNN reporters were confronted about what they think about the Trump-Russia possible collusion?
I have not.
Okay, so let me fill you in on this, and for anyone who missed this. A couple days or about a week ago, some man or woman went around and interviewed a bunch of different reporters from CNN and asked them, like, what do you think about this whole Trump-Russia thing? Like, is there a case? Is there not a case? Like, come on, off the record, guy to guy, come on, give me the feel. And in short, some of this stuff I'm paraphrasing, some of it I'm not, but there are sentiments like it's bogus, it's a witch hunt. Someone actually said it's a witch hunt, and these are all people working for CNN. Like, it's like it's bogus, it's a witch hunt, it's not real. Where's the evidence? Like, even some of the people working for CNN who have reported saying that there is evidence that Russia has been hacking in the election don't believe it. And this is my point that I'm making right now is when you have stuff like this where reporters can't even believe their own stories, you get to the point where what do you trust anymore? So I'd like to hear your opinion on this, Allie.
Okay, so you think that CNN is fake news, right? Like, you don't, right?
Yes, I do personally not trust CNN unless it's like a bunch of other people align with CNN's opinions, then like it's a almost unanimously agreed thing, then of course I'll believe CNN just like I would believe everyone else.
Right. Well, I think that I am more on the liberal end of the spectrum, which is totally fine because everybody has different political views. But I don't personally listen to CNN very often. But yeah, it sounds interesting what these reporters are doing and how they're looking at this thing revolving around Trump.
Yeah, and it's just interesting to me because, well, right now CNN is going through its own Great Depression. I mean, starting with Kathy Griffin, all the times they've been debunked, and now we're here. CNN is kind of going through a rough patch right now. Some people are even thinking that this will be the end of CNN. What do you think about that?
I don't know. That's a little bit dramatically stated, but like you said, from what you've said, CNN is at kind of a rough point right now. So yeah, I don't know. You'll just need to wait.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Another interesting thing is the fact that 3 people. I mean, I'm sure they were fired, but like, you know, Nixon officially he resigned, even though everyone knows he would have been impeached. So I'm not sure if they quit or if they were fired. But either way, there were 3 people from CNN were fired. One of them was one of the higher level officials, who like said that it's pretty much a witch hunt. What is your personal opinion? Do you think that the Russians hacked the election, and why so?
I do not think that the Russians completely hacked the election because that's very overstated. However, some evidence leads to Trump interacting with Russians, but I do not know. Honestly, the government is just, I don't know. It's not, okay, I'm just not going to offer my political opinion in this.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the purpose of the subject. But anyways, let's carry on. So the main question at this point is, who can you trust? Because before like I would even say the last year, it was pretty much like the conservatives had Fox News, the liberals had CNN, MSNBC, and so on, and everyone was kind of in their corner. Everyone trusted their own corner, and so on. But now every single, even somewhat relevant station is going under so much fire right now, that it's just unbelievable. And some of this stuff is legit, some of it isn't. It's very interesting how it's all working. Ali, you said you stated something interesting earlier. You said you kind of believe that the Russians were involved. What do you mean you kind of believe?
Well, I do think that they completely hacked everything. And I don't believe that Trump is like, best pals with the Russians. But I do think they have played some role in what the government is doing right now.
Mm-hmm. I do admit that President Donald Trump is acting pretty suspicious. I mean, like, as an example, if you go back, the Obama wiretapping stuff, and this is one point where I do not agree with President Trump, because although on many points I do agree with him, there are some I disagree with him, and this is one of them, where he came out with these accusations of former President Obama wiretapping him. And that's a huge claim. That is a massive claim. And now the story's kind of dropped off. But the president said he would come out with evidence supporting this, and he never did. What was the point of making the accusation in the first place if he wasn't going to come out with evidence of it, in your opinion?
I agree, because I think that a lot of the things right now in modern day society, it's just a lot of it is non-evidence based. And right now, a lot of evidence, because the government is honestly a mess. It's just not a very good system right now. And while you do agree with President Trump on a lot of things, this is one of them I have to agree with. It's a little bit extreme.
Yeah, like I see exactly what you're saying. But the thing is, at this point, fact and opinion, And this doesn't even apply just to the media. This applies to places in general. And by the way, right now we're entering our third section. Allie, thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like, you could stay on the call. If you'd like, you could leave. It's totally your decision. I'm really enjoying having a countering opinion. But if anyone else would like to contribute, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Right now, we're in our free-for-all section where we can talk about anything, be it the same topic we're talking about currently or another topic entirely, be it history, education, movies, shows, specifics, and so on. So, Allie, would you like to switch topics, or would you rather remain where we are?
I think we could switch topics if that would be all right with you.
I'd be fine with that. What would you like to switch to?
Okay, well, you said entertainment?
Entertainment in general? Sure. If you'd like, you can open up that conversation. I'd be more than happy with that.
Okay, well, I'm not quite sure what specifics you would like to discuss, so...
Whatever specifics you'd like to. I mean, that's the point of a free-for-all section. It can be anything.
That's true. I'm not sure.
Well, one thing I found interesting lately is the fact how in the entertainment business, would you say that the entertainment business is too prevalent in our society?
Is too what? Sorry, could you repeat that?
Prevalent. Is entertainment getting to the point where it's just too much?
I honestly think that the entertainment, like Disney and Pixar and all these like animation, I think it's going a little bit downhill, honestly. Like it's strayed so far away from like the classic films that everybody remembers from their childhood, and now it's just starting to get a little bit not as inventive and original.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Like in my view, entertainment and our lives should not be mixed. Like you look at Stephen Colbert. Stephen Colbert's ratings are skyrocketing. I don't think his show has ever had better ratings before. And that's only because he's violently insulting our president, not just disagreeing with him respectfully and cracking a few jokes like Dana Carvey used to with former President George H.W. Bush. Not with just some wisecracks that were pretty funny for everyone, including the president himself at the time. Stephen Colbert is just completely disrespectful, and the thing is, though, it's totally working. His ratings are doing absolutely amazing, and I feel like the entertainment business and the news business at this point are mixing into one hybrid of horrible proportion on both ends. What do you think?
I agree. I don't think that it's very good for like the entertainment business to personally attack our president. And while there are several points where I strongly disagree with the president, I think that it's just not okay. This is like the most we've ever attacked president in a lot of history. So yeah.
Like some people were saying that. Well, actually, this is pretty much confirmed that. Do you know Jimmy Fallon?
I do, yeah.
Do you know who Jay Leno is?
I don't.
Okay, so before Jimmy Fallon took over the Tonight Show, that was Jay Leno owned the Tonight Show. The thing was, near the end of Jay Leno's career on that show, he started attacking former President Obama. Now, I did not watch the Jay Leno show myself, and I'm not watching any of these Tonight or Daily shows because they're just too biased in my view. So I'd have to look back at the footage. But from what I was hearing, Jay Leno used to violently attack former President Obama. And if it's violent like Stephen Colbert does, to the point where it's just beyond disrespectful, in my view, that's not okay. Even though I disagree with former President Obama on many issues, I don't disrespect him. I'm not painting Hitler mustaches on him. When you get to the point where as an argument you have to equate someone to Adolf Hitler or Joseph Stalin, it's no longer a valid argument. Would you agree?
I agree. And a lot of people think that it qualifies as comedy and that's very funny to the point where you're attacking someone.
Exactly. And that's the thing now where, and this is actually what's wrong with the comedy business nowadays, where before everyone knew where the lines were, but people think like, as long as it constitutes as funny for me, constitutes for someone, it constitutes as funny for everyone, or at least my audience. I don't care if I offend someone who was raped, who was in some sort of horrible accident, or like involved with something like 9/11 or the Holocaust. It doesn't matter. If it constitutes as humor and can get me more money, that's all that matters. And that's not what the business should be anymore. I mean, going back to Dana Carvey, like his old impressions of George H.W. Bush that he used to do, that stuff was hilarious. It was mocking, but it was never insulting. And when you get to the point where you insult a president, a sitting or former president of the United States, who, even if you don't agree, you should still have respect, then it just gets to the point where it's no longer comedy.
I agree with you. Like, I think that a lot of comedy right now, it has to do with mocking and just like making jokes that can be seen as inappropriate. But comedy, all different people have different standards and requirements for what makes it funny. But I think it has, in my opinion, gotten a little bit extreme about current issues and President Donald Trump and
Ellie, it's been fantastic having you. Hoping to have more calls in the future. If you like, you can drop off. If you like, you can keep talking. It's totally up to you. But if anyone else would like to join into this conversation, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Now, Allie, I want to get into something a bit more specific here. I want to see where I want to see where you and I branch off, because you said you were more liberal than me. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I would like to think of myself as more conservative leaning. So I want to know where we branch off. Did you watch Zootopia?
Yes. And we have discussed this in the past, and we have different views towards it.
Now, in my view, I have actually talked to Allie before, and Allie, once again, thank you so much for calling into the show. It's been fantastic having you. Looking forward to more calls just as interesting in the future. But my theory on Zootopia is it's a movie primarily for kids. I just decided, why not? I was bored one day, so like, why not? Let's go see it. I thought it was going to be fantastic due to the ratings. And it was primarily meant as a kid's movie. Like, they put in a Godfather reference, which is hilarious. They put in the DMV sloth reference. Like, that's funny. Like a nice little couple of jokes for the adults. But there is a huge, and I mean massive, visible underlying political message in that movie. And in my view, that should not be the case. If you look at a movie like Wonder Woman aced women's empowerment. It was an empowering movie for women, and it showed actual sexism in the 1910s during World War I, where there actually was societal okayness with treating women as a lesser gender, and it actually showed it to be what it was at the time. And it did nothing with modern time. Well, then again, the movie was mostly not in modern times, so maybe they would have. But in my view, they aced it with Wonder Woman. And the whole story with Gal Gadot, which I believe I described on the show, and if not, we're going to get into this on the final couple minutes, was just absolutely amazing. And I think that'll be one of my next sections. I'll be talking about DC Comics and Marvel and why I like DC more than Marvel. And for purposes of entertainment, and actual messages that are being pushed, and who they choose as their representatives. So that's kind of my feel on Zootopia. What is your feel on Zootopia, Allie?
There are a lot of underlying political themes that keep reoccurring throughout the film, like the way police officers are portrayed. It takes it takes a spin on racism. And for kids, I just think that they're really young to understand it. But the film itself has like a really strong political message. And I do have to say that this political message is probably not something that should be in a children's film. However, I think the cinematic experience of watching Zootopia, it was really funny, and I really did enjoy it overall. But I can agree with you that there were some there were a lot of political references in it, and I disagree with a lot of those.
But did you disagree with all of them like I did? Well, not all of them, but a very vast majority. And
well, which political references did you catch throughout the film? Then I'll tell you which ones I agreed and disagreed with.
Well, the first thing was the thing with the predators, which I assume is supposed to portray black people. And they're a large majority of prey, which I'm assuming portrays white people, where on the whole, the predators, or the black people, again, I'm assuming that's what they meant by this, and it's a very safe assumption, we're pretty much being shunned from society. And unlike Wonder Woman, this was no early 20th century setting. This was definitely meant to portray modern times. So in your view, do you think this is accurate to society? Do you think minorities are being shunned because they are minorities on a societal level?
On a societal level, I do think that a lot of African American and Black people are trying to make their voice heard, which is definitely something that I encourage and respect. However, I don't think it's a very big issue, honestly. Not really.
Okay, but that's a fair point. But do you think it had to be in a kid's movie? Like a little kid's movie?
It makes a political impact, but in a little kids movie, well, there are positives and negatives to that. Kids will probably not understand it as much as the adults watch it. It's really family oriented, so I am both ways on this matter, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my opinion is a bit more one-sided, and frankly, it's great to have an opposite opinion. I like having calls with similar and differing opinions, and that's what that's why I enjoy doing this show. For callers just like you, who aren't like a majority of YouTube commenters, who, if you slightly to the left of their opinion, slightly to the right of their opinion, you are a racist, a sexist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic person. So it's great that we can have you, Allie. Really appreciate that you call in. You can stay for as long as you'd like. Totally your choice. 17 minutes to the hour. And if anyone would like to call in the final minutes of our free-for-all section before we get into our philosophical section, and again, Allie, if you'd like, you can stay or drop off at any point you'd like to. The number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Now back to our discussion. Another interesting thing that kind of interested me in the movie. Did you think they generally portrayed police officers as good or bad in this movie? I couldn't really tell. They were kind of doing both.
Well, I do think that they portrayed police officers as trying to protect the society. However, I do think that they, like with Nick Wilde, the fox who was in the movie, they just saw foxes and predators as like sneaky, like it just wasn't a very good portrayal of that, and I think it could go both ways. But overall, on a larger scale, I did not really like the police officers in that movie.
But I'm asking, do you think the movie tried to portray them as good or bad? I didn't like anyone in that movie.
I think the movie tried to portray them as, it was bad overall, but then in the end it started to become good, or at least better.
I had the opposite impression, but I thought it was good in the end, and then they ruined it. But anyways, I think that should wrap up this section. Anyways, right now we're going to be moving into, I guess you could call it our philosophical section. I mean, the rest of this was also kind of philosophical, and we sort of have branched from we branched from Hawker's Memoirs to CNN to philosophical debates to kids movies to philosophical debates to a different kind of philosophical debate. And I'd like to attribute or dedicate this section to David Amerland, a very good author, a very nice person, and a very smart person. And I saw a post by him which interested me. And the question of that post, there was a big question at the very beginning of it. What is more important, purpose or profit? And in that particular post, when he said profit, he meant money. But I'm going to widen that a bit. I'm going to say by profit, I'm just going to say how it benefits. So would you rather feel fulfilled or successful? That is our question for the next 15 minutes. And let's just get starting opinions. I want to start with you, Alan. Would you rather feel successful? Would you rather have, you don't feel completely fulfilled, but you have, like, you got a nice, whatever, nice family, nice house, fairly nice situation overall in life? Or would you rather feel like you have fulfilled yourself, but you're not very well off? Like, you know, there are a lot of things wrong in your life, but you have fulfilled yourself. You think you are a good person who is doing the right things, and you feel fulfilled as a person. Which would you prefer?
I would honestly prefer being fulfilled as a person. Like, whether you're living in poverty or with family situations, it's always good to see, like, it's always good to feel happy with yourself and content with your life, instead of just having very good conditions and yet not feeling very fulfilled.
I'm about to go a bit into a sad story here. And I'm not going to give too many details, just a general gist. At one point, I had a friend, and well, I'm trying to think about, like, the exact details. Well, let's just say at one point, I've been going through I was going through a very rough patch with different people in my life. And after a relationship was cut off, like on a very permanent basis, and I got to the point, and I was actually at a very good stage in my life on the overall. Like, I remember before all that stuff kind of started happening with me, I remember my parents were fine, my grandma was fine, everyone was healthy, I was healthy. But I remember for those 2 weeks, the 2 weeks following all the drama that had gone on with family and friends, I remember how bad I felt, even though I was guilty of nothing. Just how bad I felt after the whole situation. Again, I do not want to get into specifics, but how bad I felt after the entire situation, to the point where it was pretty much a depression. I didn't, even though everything in my life was going fine. My parents were fine with me. My grandma was fine with me. My grandpa, or my grandma, my grandpas, my sister, my aunts, my cousins, and so on. Everyone was fine with me, and I was fine with them. Everything was happy. House, you know, same. Everything's nice. I remember, but because I felt bad about something, which again wasn't even my fault, because I did not feel fulfilled. It was on that one certain situation. I got to the point where it was a depression. I really did not care what happened with my life. And I remember at one point, it was, then again, there are other situations where profit takes over purpose. Would you agree that there are specific scenarios where you think profit takes over purpose?
I have to admit that, I mean, it's different for everybody, but there are some instances where profit does take over more, because, I mean, you never know what is, like, you don't really know what is going on in a person's life, even though I have to say that I had something similar to your experience. Last year was a little bit rough for me, and I fell into, yes, somewhat of a depression. And even though I have a lot of profit, my family is doing really well, it was just not, I wasn't fulfilled. either. And I think being fulfilled as a person is a lot more important than having a perfect life and stuff. So yeah.
And yeah, and well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm happy that you're out of it now.
Mhm.
But and it is different for different people. But in specific scenarios, there are cases like if you are poor, if you are just very poor, you're about to go on the streets, you're about to have to like sell your house and sell your possessions and everything, and you have to do one thing that might like set back a purpose of yours. Like let's say you want to be an author. You have to sell the rights to your book, like sell the rights for it to become a movie, and you do not believe in this movie and you really feel passionate about your book. But like otherwise you're just not going to sell enough. In order to survive and like to live a good life, I would definitely sell the rights to that book to get a movie, at least so I could get back on my feet. In my view, profit is what you need to get to purpose. Like right now, everyone has different things going on in their life, and as do I. But I've never felt more fulfilled as a person. I have no idea why. I've been listening to Tony Robbins. So if anyone wants motivational help, I cannot even begin to recommend Tony Robbins enough. Like, and I don't need to spend X $100 to get into a chair for an hour and talk about it. But hey, I don't personally like psychiatrists. But that's an entirely separate discussion. But I've never felt better as a person, even though I have like there are problems in my life which were more serious than when profit in general, not even specifically money, just how things were doing with relationships and stuff like that. Like that is profit. Purpose is just how you feel yourself. Profit is literally everything else, I'd say. So profit is kind of the underlying thing for purpose. The point of profit is to get to purpose. But when you get to the point where you override your profit with your purpose, does life become worth living anymore?
I think that profit can lead to purpose, but purpose can also lead to profit, because if you, like you said, people are at different stages in their life and different points. However, purpose, if you feel fulfilled as a person and you feel motivated to do something, this can lead to overall a very successful lifestyle in which you can both obtain both profit and purpose. Do you agree with this, or do you have different views?
I gotta say, I totally agree with what you pretty much said, your sentiments. Because the thing about, well, but then again, for some people, like you said, it's different for everyone, like different deals. Like if you ask some, like some huge Soviet supporter, some huge Soviet Union supporter who never thought the Union should have died out, some whatever communist who wants to move to, what's a communist country? Not China, whatever, North Korea. I don't, or is China still communist? I don't know. But like North Korea as an example, they're probably communist. You look at them, and again, assuming in theory that they're that, if you ask them, or if you ask some old Soviet supporter, they're going to tell you, of course, purpose overrides profit. But if you ask some greedy Scrooge is a perfect example. If you ask some greedy businessman in a very capitalistic society like the States, what's another example? Actually, I think Russia is really capitalist nowadays. Countries like that, like some diehard people who just like, they've earned their money and they fought for their money. They'll tell you that profit is more important because, purpose doesn't lead to a happy lifestyle, but to an extent it does. It just, you can't buy your way into it. What do you think?
I do not think that money needs to be, like, it really does depend on who you ask and where they're at in their life. And I just think that one of the overall things, like, which determines people's opinion on the matter is where they're at in their life and what made them successful. Because if you surround yourself with good people and you feel really fulfilled, then your purpose as a person, doesn't have to do so much with money. Whereas if you're like a really successful business person, you care about money a lot, then profit is also very important. So it really just depends.
Yeah, I think actually for everyone, even though not everyone will admit it, and this is a big statement, I'm admitting ahead of time, I could be wrong. I think everyone cares about purpose more, even those big greedy businessmen, because if you think about it, I mean, profit is their purpose, but if it's still their purpose though, if you think about it that way. But you could also say that their biggest need in life or purpose is still money, or profit is still actually profit. It's a very interesting conversation. And once again, I'd like to thank David Amerland for bringing this up. This really got me thinking, and I'm happy I could display my opinions with you, Allison. And I'm hoping you can call into the show in the future. Have you by chance heard of the YouTuber FuzzyTube?
I have, but I do not watch. I do not watch content on this channel.
Okay. Well, I'm going to share some very interesting stuff with you, including my last show where I talked about FuzzyTube and the different things he's done. I am very anti-FuzzyTube, but I do still display the facts. And I think I'm going to do at least 2 more segments or shows with a segment about FuzzyTube. And if you could join me for that, that would be absolutely amazing. I'd love to have your opinion on that. 4 minutes to the hour. Once again, we are still taking your calls. The number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. So Allison, in your view, let's say you have the opportunity to. Okay, actually, I'm going to bring up a scenario I already brought up earlier. This is a good example. Remember that scenario I talked about where you pretty much have to sell your house and all your items, or you're going to go starving on the street. Well, if you sell the rights to your book to this movie company, then you can get enough money to get back on your feet, and possibly go back for the purpose. In your view, is temporarily giving up your purpose for profit a good idea? If it's only temporarily giving up your purpose, do you think it's worth it to give up your purpose temporarily to get profit for a certain amount of time if you're in dire straits?
I think that if you become a successful person and then are able to obtain your purpose again, yes, I do think that it is okay to give it up temporarily. However, it's good to be motivated constantly. So even if you can't become full like with profit and such, you still have purpose. So I'm again both ways on this matter. But and it's been really good it's been really good. Thank you for having me on your show. But I think I have to go now.
Of course. This isn't Soviet torture. That's listening to a piano that's listening to one of my piano recitals. But thank you very much for joining me. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Anyways, I'd like to thank Allison once again for joining us. Whenever you have a chance to watch this, Allison, looking forward to having more of your calls in the future. That'll pretty much wrap up our show for the day. Don't forget to go follow me on SoundCloud, or if you're listening to this on SoundCloud, don't forget to follow me on YouTube. If you're doing both, you're already one step closer to being a true fan. And if you want to be a really great fan, go buy the Hawker's Memoirs on Amazon and try to stop spam reporters. Since we've pretty much done this topic to death, I'd like to talk about how annoying Amazon comments can be sometimes. Right now, the Hawker's Memoirs has one review, one-star review. And apparently a friend of mine told a quote-unquote friend of hers about Hawker's Memoirs. And this friend rated 1 star without reading the book. This was published about an hour and a half after my 280-page book, and the hardest book that I've worked on, harder than even Hero of the First Islands and Journal of the Survivor. 1 star with the caption, "Don't get." And the English is written beautifully. It's like a perfect merge. It's like David Amerland multiplied by Hawker's Memoirs. Listen to this beautiful English. Amazon did not let me get this book because he had. Then he leaves a period. I more hard copies, so if I could, I would give it 0 stars. I reported this twice. I've said it is not helpful, and it has been up for 2 days. So here's a note. Make sure get some good friends. Make sure they don't do this to other people, and don't get friends with bad English. Anyway, that's satirical for anyone who speaks bad English. That'll do it for this show. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Make sure to go buy the book and check out David Amerland on Google+. Got a new book coming out soon, The Sniper Mind. Make sure to go read that when it comes out. More details on his account. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining.